Hey guys, and welcome to /X Games. So today I'd like to share with you part 2 of my level editor solution. And in this part we're going to be handling the saving, the loading, and the testing out of the levels that we create. So on save of our editor room, I'm going to be storing the location and the types of blocks in a JSON structure within an ini file. So if you know nothing about ini files or JSON structures, please click the link in the description. I cover saving and loading. We're going to be using very similar implementation for this as we did in that one. So first things first, I'm going to import one of my favorite string split scripts. String split, just like that. So what it does is it takes in a string as argument 0, then it takes argument 1, the divider, and it spits out an array. Pretty cool stuff. Alright. Then we're going to head into the save button. So this button actually exists in the create room. There it is over there. So at the bottom here we have all the different types of selectables that we can place in our game world. And we click save, and it's supposed to save that to some sort of data structure that we can then load the playable area from. Okay, so let's go into save on left press. Now before I was just going straight to the room, it wasn't doing any saving. But this time I need to find how many draggables there are in the room using instance number. And that's object draggable. Then, well, if file exists, this is going to be called world.ini. We're going to say file delete world.ini. That's where we're saving our game world to. Then we're going to recreate this game world ini file using file text open for write. It will create it if it doesn't exist, and again world.ini. Cool stuff. So we got a blank file that we can write to. Then I want to say for every single draggable in the room is less than the draggable count I++. I'm going to say, well, that instance, I'm going to grab that instance real quick. Instance find. So this is object draggable. And this is sorry. We're going to convert this instance into a DS map. Var instance map. DS map create. Then here I'm going to say ds map add. We're going to add to the instance map. What do we want to add? Well, I want to add an x coordinate, which is instance.x. And let's copy this twice. Bam, bam. Next one is the y coordinate, which is instance.y, and the image index, which is instance.imageIndex. Next we need to convert this DS map into JSON. I'm going to call this a JSON instance, and its JSON encode takes in a DS map, so that's our instance map, just like that. And now I'm going to write to that text file, file text write as a string. And here we've got a file, which is going to be save file. And the string is going to be JSON instance, like that. And once we've written one JSON instance, I need to do the same, but add some sort of separation character. So in this case, I'm going to be writing a pipe to separate them out. And then, to make sure we're not leaking in any memory, ds map destroy. Remember, it's destroy, not delete. And once it's done all that, we can say close the file, file text close, and that is save file. So I'll run that through one more time. So we find out how many draggables we've got in our create room. Make sure that we delete the current saved world. I'm going to create a new text file called world.ini. It's going to replace the old one. I'm going to iterate over all the draggables in my room. And for each one, I'm going to grab its instance. I'm going to convert this instance to a DS map. So each piece, key value pairs, x, y, image index. I'm going to convert this DS map into a JSON string. I'm going to write that string, that JSON string, to the file. I'm going to write the separation character. I'm going to destroy the map, and then I'm going to move on to the next object. So at this point, I am going to save the game and run it and show you that that file is indeed created. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a smaller level. Let's put that there. A whole lot of flat. Let's put our spawn point on top over there. Let's make it a bit of a mound here. There we go. A bit of an island, actually. Yeah. One of these and one of those. Okay, cool. So he's on some sort of island. He's trapped. But anyway, let's make sure that that actually saves. So I'm going to click Save. Let's head into app data. So that's where it's storing our world.ini. There you can see it was created. Let's open it with Notepad. And look at that. We've got our data structure. We've got X 704, Y 512, image index 5, X 768, Y 512, image index 5. And see, those are a lot of 5s. Down near the bottom here, we've got an image index of 7, so that was one of the side pieces. So that is going to be our world. Simple as that. I'm going to exit that for now, and let's minimize. So the next step of this is actually going into loading our level. So we've created our level, but see, it's not loading it back into here. So we need to go into the create code of this creation room, this editor, and make sure that it loads from that load file, so the user can fiddle around a bit more with his map at a later stage. So let's do that right now. Okay, so room create, creation code. So after we've placed our selectables, here I can say, well, if file exists, world.ini, I can say var world load file equals file text open for read, there we go, world.ini. Once you've grabbed that, we can say if we're not at the end of the file, so not file text end of file, there it is, of the world load file, var world master data, so that's just a very long string of data, equals file text read string, the load file. So now we've got our entire world as one long string. We need to split that string up and get our JSON draggables. So let's turn that into an array. And I'm going to use the script that I imported earlier called script string split. So it wants the master data as well as the string we're using to split everything up. Now the cool thing about this is we can also get the count of draggables by simply counting the length of our one-dimensional array. And that's our world array. Now let's just make sure that that array count is greater than 0, because there's no point trying to do anything if it isn't. And again, we're going to do a for loop over here. Var I equals 0, I is less than draggable count, I++. Let's grab that draggable JSON as the index of the world array. We need to deserialize that using JSON decode, and that's going to turn it back into a DS map. Like that. Next we need to extract values. var x, and we need var y, and we need a var image index. So var x equals ds map find value. This value exists in our draggable map, and its key is x. Copy that twice more. This one's key is y, and this guy's key is image index. Cool, so we've grabbed that x, y, and image index now as values. I can create my draggable. Var draggable equals instance create. I want to create it at point x and point y, and we want to say it's object draggable. There he is. And lastly, we need to set the draggable image index to this one. Oh, and also, let's make sure that we're destroying this DS map. So even though we haven't declared it as a DS map, and nowhere in this file it actually mentions that it's a DS map, this JSON decode does create a DS map. So DS map destroy draggable map. And once we've done that, on the way over here, we need to say file, text, close, and that is the world load file. We don't want that sitting open. Get rid of all this extra space. Perfect, save. Okay, so what we're doing is, so long as we have some sort of world, we're grabbing that world, and so long as we're not at the end of the file, we're grabbing all that master data, it's one long string, we're splitting that string up by the pipe character into an array. We're finding out how many draggables we have stored in that array, so that's how many objects, how many game world objects we have. As long as they're greater than 0, that's the count. We are creating one for every one in this array. So we grab the JSON for that element, we convert it into a DS map, we extract the values and recreate the draggable. Don't forget to destroy that map right over there. And lastly, we close the file for later use. Also, while we're here, I'm noticing that the draggable doesn't have a sprite, so we actually have to go draggable.spriteIndex equals SPR selectable. So they share the same sprite. Okay, cool. So let's save. Let's go OK, save, and run. So when we go to the level editor, it now should show us that man sitting on a little bit of an island. Okay, so create. There he is. He's been loaded in. So if we have to shift him up one block, so let's move all these up there. Shift everything by one up. Let's put more middle bits. Another side, and save. And go create to load again. See? He's been moved. Everything is saved. Just like that. Cool, huh? So that is the save. Now, the next big step is actually loading these into the game world where the player can then spawn at this spot and run around on the platform that we've created for him. So let's jump into that next. So here we're going to head into the room world. Right over here, we've got a lovely background. It's going to spawn him somewhere on here. Creation code. Currently it doesn't do anything. I'm actually going to go into the creation code of our create world. There's some stuff that's actually quite similar. Copy this if statement. Back here, paste it in. Some things we can change. So we also want to check if the world exists. We want to grab that load file. If we're not at the end of the load file, grab the master data, turn that into a world array. Determine the amount of draggables we have. If they're greater than 0, we're going to do a for loop, grab the JSON, turn it into a map, extract the values, and things are going to change from here. So now I'm actually using, if we go out of here and into our backgrounds, I'm using a tile set for the ground. So we want to speed up the game, and tiles render a lot faster, use less memory than actual sprites. So for every draggable, I actually want to place one of these tiles down. So we're going to be exploring the tile add function, but also because we've got a player who isn't a tile sprite, he's one of these guys, we're going to need to make sure that when we get to creating an image index that's him, we don't create a tile, we rather create a player object. And also, to go along with the physics of this game, the player interacts with this invisible object block, so that also needs to be created for every tile. Alright, so back into the creation code. So let's determine which guy, which image index, is actually the man. So if we go into our selectables, we go through all of these, we notice all of this is terrain from 0 all the way up until 12 is terrain, and number 13 is our man. So for every one from 0 to 12, we generate a tile, as well as an object block. And for everyone that's 13, we generate a man, an object man. So I'm going to create a switch statement, and I'm going to switch on that image index. And I'm going to make a case statement from everything from 0 up to 12. If we look on here, 0 all the way up to 12. But before that, I'm going to say, well, if the image index is anything from 0 to 12, do one thing. And if it's a 13, do something else. So if it's not equal to 13, then we actually hit the switch. Otherwise, we need to create a man. And to create a man, we're just going to say instance create at position X and position Y, object player. Now the sprite and the image index of that player determines what he's doing. So if he's on the ground, he's going to immediately change to the standing sprite. So we don't have to set his image index or his sprite index up, because that's all set already in the object. So let's go into the detail of creating all those tiles and the invisible blocks and whatnot. So first thing, let's create an invisible block. Instance create at X at Y object block. So the blocks the player actually runs on don't have any sprite indexes or image indexes. We don't see them, so we don't need to give them anything else. It's right here in the switch, and just before the switch that we do all the magic that the user actually sees. Now here's something you might not have known. To create a tile, I need to first offset the X and Y slightly, as a tile set origin is at X equals 0 and Y equals 0. So here I'm going to say, well, X minus equals the sprite get width SPR selectable divided by 2. I'm going to do the same with the Y. That's the Y divided by 2. Now that we've got the actual X and Y, we can go ahead and use the case statements from 0 to 12 to actually generate these tiles. And that's simply by saying tile add tset ground. And now I have to go through the tile set like this and stipulate which one of these blocks I want to create. Now tile add at the bottom, see, it takes in a left, top, width, height, X, Y, and a depth. So the left and top is the offset away from the top left, 0, 0, right over there. The width and height is the width and height of the tile you want to draw. Your X and Y is where you want to draw it. And the depth is at what depth this tile is drawn. So for example, the first one is going to be at 0, 0, because that's the guy over here, 0, 0. We want to draw his width and his height, put him at underscore X underscore Y, and his depth is going to be 0. So 0, 0, 64 width, 64 height, underscore X underscore Y, and 0 for depth. Okay, case 1 is the next guy. So he sits now over here. His X offset is now 64X and Y equals 0. His width and height is still 64 by 64. We want to put him at underscore X and underscore Y, and his depth is going to be 0. So the first one here, left offset 64. Y offset still 0 because it's the first row. His width and height are the same, and his X and Y. And we put him at underscore X underscore Y and 0. Next, let's do 2. Go back to the ground. 0, 1, 2. So his offset is 128. His y offset is still 0. His width and height are still 64. We still want to put him at _x and _y. And his depth is going to be 0. So we got 128 on the x is 0 on the y. 64, 64, x, y is 0. Now you'll notice a pattern as we go along. Number 3. Open this up. 0, 1, 2, 3. Number 3's offset is 192, which is 64 times 3. His y offset is still 0 because it's right at the top. His width and height is still 64. We still want him to be at x and y, and his depth is still 0. 0, 64. Good, good. Now number 4 bumps up that y offset. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we're on the second row, first column. Our x offset is now 0. Our y offset is now 64. See, it's 64 pixels down. Width and height is still 64. We still want to put it at _x _y, and the depth is 0. So the first one goes back to 0. See, we're back here. The second one now has a turn of going to 64. The width and height is still 64. X and y and 0. Number 5 is going to be similar to number 1 up here. We're going to have a 64 on the x, a 64 on the y offset, both 64 by 64 pixels, and the x and y. And number 6 is now going to be 128 on the x, so similar to number 2 here. Our y, still 64, and 64, and 64, and x and y and 0. So I'm going to speed this up and do the other 6 real quick. But ultimately what you're doing is you're just making sure the offsets are correct so that when it creates a certain image index, it's going to generate that tile for it. Alright, so those are all the tile sets set up from 0 all the way through to 12. And we've got our player being created at number 13. Once again, destroy the map that you've created and close the text file. Now, just for those that are curious, I'm going to comment out these offsets just like that. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by the offset of a tile is slightly off. So at this point, we've still got our man on his island. If we play, there he is. And check that out. Notice he's walking around up here and the block is below him, but the tile set's way down there. I should actually be able to stand in thin air when I get to the end of this one. Creepy stuff, eh? So the edge of the actual block is somewhere around here where my mouse is, but it's drawing it in the middle of that block. So I'm providing it with the origin of the invisible block, but the origin of a tile is the top left. So we need to make sure that this tile over here is offset by exactly half of its width to get it right where it needs to be. So let's exit this. Let's go back in to the room world creation code. Let's put these back and let's try again. There we go. We're standing on the island where it needs to be. The tiles are matching up with the invisible blocks, and we are ready to create the best game world ever. So that's really awesome stuff, and we can edit these. We can make all kinds of fun things. Let's actually make a jump for this guy. He's going to jump across the gap. Let's see if he can make that gap. And he's going to go there. And we've got that. We've got a cliff face going, just like that. Let's save. Play. Is he going to make it? Oh, he did. Oh, he's going to slide off. Oh no, it's slippery. And he has died. But in effect, we have the map that the players created. So guys, I hope you found this tutorial educational and helpful. Please feel free to comment, rate, and subscribe for more. If you like this video as well as many of my other videos I have on my channel, I invite you to check out my Patreon campaign. I do appreciate your support. It helps me get more of these videos out to you and helps me buy all kinds of equipment that I use on the channel. If you have any ideas to evolve this solution into something even more, I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments below. There is room for a part 3. The project files for the solution can be found in the description. So until next time, happy coding, and I'll see you then.